and welcome to the Raising Greats podcast, a place where we talk to parents who have raised professional children so that we who are raising children now can learn what we need to do to potentially raise somebody who has made it in their career path. So today I'm super excited because I have Laura Baker here, mom to one of my very, very best friends, Amanda Baker Browning. And so we are going to deep dive into Amanda. Amanda is a professional actress, and some of you may have seen her on some of the shows or even some movies that she's done. I know we have been sitting at home and had the TV on, and we're like, hey, it's Amanda. From sitcoms to she was in a soap opera for years and even to some short films. Amanda, why don't you go ahead and give us some of the accolades that you've had?
Well, I would say probably the meat of what I did was soap operas, and there were two. There was one called General Hospital and one called All My Children that I did, and then I was able to do a couple sitcoms and some films, some national commercials, and some short films, which were actually really fun. So yeah, it kind of spans various different genres. So it's been fun to kind of be able to experience a lot of that and some TV movies and things like that. But the meat of everything was probably the soap operas.
Yeah, okay, so Laura, she is super talented. Did she get this from you and your husband?
Musically, my husband sings and plays the guitar, and Amanda started taking piano lessons at 4 years old. She did the Suzuki method, which is you listen by ear to a record player every night, and so she picked up music quite at a young age, and she loves to sing. She would sing as a child, and so I want to say maybe, yeah, his musically from my husband, and I do a lot of funny, like mocking type things. And she said, I think I got that from you, Mom.
Yeah, my mom, she's really good at like mimicking people and
Yeah,
like
mimicking.
doing
I meant to
accent.
say
Yeah,
mimicking.
she has an innate ability just to like to copy, which is a lot of what acting is. And so I was able to pick up on that and get those same qualities. It's funny because we would joke whenever she's on the phone with someone, she kind of just innately picks up their accent,
There.
like how they speak, and I know who she's speaking to. And so it's like I think that's really a skill because not a lot of people they struggle to be able to do different accents and things like that. So I think I got a lot of my acting abilities from you for sure.
I'm sure it was probably a lot of fun because you would banter back and forth together, right? Like, say
Yeah.
you're on a long car ride and all of a sudden you're doing an impersonation of someone, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden
Yeah.
Amanda jumps in. Did that happen a lot?
Oh, yes, yes. And I worked in real estate, and we'd had a real estate party one weekend where the girls got together, all the women at the thing. We rented a beach house, and Amanda was our entertainment. She came and entertained us with Genie in a Bottle and like Christina Aguilera song, and she did a lot of funny things,
Yeah.
little
Yeah. Oh, I
skits.
remember that. Yeah. There was like a karaoke machine and
Yeah.
oh yeah, all
And all
kinds
my friends just loved it because they thought she was hilarious.
yeah, mom liked to bring me out of my shell. I was a little shy, so she'd say, "Hey, why don't you
Yes,
tell that story about this or this?" And so she really celebrated that, which was nice.
yes,
Okay, so you were a little shy, and you, Laura, would pull her into a situation out of that shyness by really kind of guiding her
yes,
into how she could get out of that.
yes. I tried. Well, I put her in dancing at about 3 years old, and my parents drove up from Florida to see her in the recital, which she ran off the stage as soon as the curtain opened. But I didn't give up on that. I just kept talking to her and saying, it's all right. Everything's going to be all right. And I kept putting her in dancing and music, and she really came into it.
Yeah. Yeah, she did champion me. I think you saw a lot of the qualities I had with some of the
Yes,
things I would do at home, and so
yes,
um I was very shy, like very, very shy,
Yes.
and just terrified. Even I remember in middle school just being kind of like, you know, but she always encouraged me and really would get me out of my shell and tried to make me feel like, hey, you could do this. You have a
Yeah.
talent.
So you spoke life into the areas that you saw greatness in. And
Yes.
did you have any prayers or words of encouragement that you really would speak into her?
Yes. Well, I just prayed for her every day throughout the day, and like I do with all my family. And, God, please just help her to have confidence and give her a peace that only you can. And she really did come out. And then when she was in high school, I think she became a cheerleader and was on the student council. And she did a lot of things, I think, that all build her confidence and get in front of people and crowds. And I
Yeah.
think that helped her with her acting.
I'm sure that it did. So it was just consistency on your part of saying, no, just let's keep trying and let's keep
Yes.
trying. So going back to how you would pull her in front of your friends and say, oh, do this or tell this story. I love that because you see something in her that maybe she didn't see in herself.
Yes.
But did it ever turn against you where all of a sudden as just parents, I feel like we're always hearing, hey mom, watch this, watch what I did, look at this, let me sing a song for you. Is that something that you were like, oh man, like I love watching all of your things, but I'm busy too, I need to do these things?
Yes. Yes. But you know what? I really would, and her daddy too. He would. We were her best audience. We would sit and listen, and she
Yeah.
would share with us. But I would try to encourage her because I wanted her to be outgoing.
I did go through a phase where all I would sing was Christina Aguilera, "She Need a Bottle."
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
probably like, one more time. No, I think that you guys really saw because I was coming out of my shell that you encouraged it, and so you
Yes.
didn't ever wanna, like, say, "Not right now."
Didn't say anything because I didn't want to discourage her or make her feel self conscious. So
Yeah.
I always praised her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. We would go
Yeah.
in my mom's closet and, like, put on, like, fashion shows,
Oh yeah.
and, she was always right there, like, cheering us on and helping us put on the outfits and being the judge.
That's right. And our house was the hub for the
Yeah,
hangout. All
yeah,
the children. I let her have slumber parties, and that, like she said, they go in my closet and get. Of course, I was a lot thinner then, but dresses and shoes and makeup, and
yeah,
I tried because uh, essentially I brought her up as an only child. Her sister's older,
yeah.
and so I loved every minute of it, and I loved her friends. I just we had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yeah. They all would they all knew that when they'd come over, we would always do some fun stuff and put on shows and
And I'd order pizza and things like that. I always knew where she was. I was glad she wanted to be at home, and I tried to make it the most comfortable, as comfortable as I could.
That's how I grew up too, where our house was the hub. And that's what I want for my kids too. Because she started down this road kind of early of wanting to perform for you and your husband, did you see at an early age that this could actually be a career for her?
Well, I knew she had talent, and I had one of her teachers tell me one time, "We're going to know Amanda's name," and I thought that was real sweet. But I did think that she was going to do something. I always felt it in my heart. Now, my husband, he didn't mind her doing things locally, but when she moved, he did. He missed her.
yeah,
Well, I was going to ask, when she packed up that car or her suitcase to head out to LA, how did that feel for you? I mean, because probably in one hand, you're like, I'm so proud, but then in another hand, like you're so
Yes.
heartbroken that she's leaving.
Well, that is so true. I was thrilled to death that, she wanted to go and pursue that. I wanted her to fulfill her dreams. But at the same time, we were so sad because that's a long way from South Carolina. That's where the RV came in because I told my husband, I said, I cannot be apart from her for so long. And so, that it worked out. But it was hard for him too because he didn't want her to go to LA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's tough. You hear all of these things about LA, about how the pressure and the demand is so hard on people.
Yeah,
And here
yeah,
you are, like your daughter that you love dearly. It probably felt a little bit like just throwing her to the wolves.
it did. It really did. I mean, I was so worried about her, but I mean, I just put her in God's hands and I said, Lord, please take care of her and watch over her. And but Natasha, she'd have to work a side job, and I'd say, call me when you get in. And
Yeah.
one night she didn't call me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
Because
sleep that night, but she said I couldn't sleep. But it's
uh,
very hard for her to be all that far away.
it was hard for me too, because I remember heading out there thinking, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
Um, but I did feel this tug, it was, and it wasn't like a sudden decision. It was, there were kind of steps that led up to it because I
yeah,
had pursued a lot of things in the Southeast and a little bit in New Orleans. And so I felt like that was the next step because
yeah,
of things that had happened before that. So the same time of feeling like, what am I doing? There was also this sense of like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this because I feel like God's leading me this way. But nonetheless, if you look on the map, it was like I was on one side of the country and they were on the other. So it was a very hard,
yes,
it's like as far as you can go in one country. So talk about, yeah, stepping out in faith. That was definitely one of those times,
yes, yes, for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. And okay, so you mentioned the RV. Tell us tell us the story behind the RV.
Well, when she moved out to California, I told my husband, I said, well, we're going to have to figure out a way to get to her and take three cats. And because I want to go stay out there for a while. And so he found this RV and we ended up buying it and we drove out across the country and it was a lot of fun. So we found a nice campground near Amanda and we just stayed out there for the first about 3 months and then we came back and we'd go back and forth. We did it about 5 times.
I love that you had the opportunity to go out there and stay for so long
Yeah,
because it just hit your family at the right time where your husband was retiring and then she was going. I know a lot of people may not have their situation hit at the right time and they won't have that
that's right.
opportunity.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I'm glad that happened the way that it did for you. So
Okay.
going back, Amanda, you had said that you had a lot of opportunity in the Southeast. Walk us through that and what that looked like for you. Did you also, while you were doing all of this, did you have a job, or Laura, was it more that you and your husband saw where she was going and decided to financially help her so that she could pave that way?
Both. I mean, you did work. Go ahead, baby,
Yeah,
and tell.
when it first started, I was working at a real estate company, and there was a photographer that would do a lot of the pictures for like their magazines. And I sat at the front desk at the real estate company, and he came in one day and was like, "Hey, I am actually doing a local commercial." He's like, "I'm looking for some extras. Would you want to be a part of it?" And I had already dabbled in some acting and things like that prior, like when I was younger, but I hadn't really done anything after college. And so I was like, yeah, that would be fun. And so I ended up going on this local commercial, and I met a girl there that was with an agency. And she said, you need to look up this agency because they're actually taking some people on. And so long story short, I ended up signing with the agency, and pretty much the very first audition I did with them, I booked. And so from there, it kind of started growing. And in the Southeast, you have, at the time, there was like, Dawson's Creek started in Wilmington, North Carolina. That had kind of ended. And then they were doing One Tree Hill. So they had some studios built there. So they were also filming some movies and doing stuff in Atlanta. And it wasn't as big as it is now, but it was growing. So I had the opportunity to kind of, start off there. And while I was working at the real estate company, I started singing in a band at night. And that happened very randomly. What ended up happening was I was able to kind of get out of my day job and start singing in the band and do that at night so I could do more auditions during the day. So when I decided to move out to LA though, or actually New Orleans and then Los Angeles, they really did help me quite a bit because of just trying to financially, obviously LA is a lot more expensive. And even though I had roommates, I did live with 3 other girls. You all definitely helped me in trying to
Yeah.
keep things going, so I wasn't just trying to survive, basically. But yeah, so it was interesting that first part when I was working full time, and then things and watching God kind of shift things to where I was able to still work, at least when I was living in the Southeast, and make money and still pursue my acting during the day.
So you all didn't really let her be a starving artist, is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
that's right. We
No,
did. Her
no,
daddy.
I honestly I don't know what that feels like. I mean, in the sense of like just working 10 jobs. I did work at you can tell this funny story, Mom, but I did work at a sushi restaurant when I moved out to Los Angeles. It was hilarious because I knew, I mean, I was gonna get a job. I wasn't just gonna like, you know, I'm too good for working and I'm gonna audition. I definitely had to get a job.
Yeah, you
But
did.
but yeah, I remember calling Mom and I was like, "You'll never believe I got a job." And she's like, "Where?" And I'm like, "It's at a sushi restaurant." And started off hosting there. So after I was there for a few months, like one of the waitresses came up to me and she's like, "Hey," she's like, "Do you think you would be interested in waitressing?" And I'm like, I didn't realize I could, because they're all of like Asian descent. There was like Japanese, there was Korean, there was they were all, she's like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, just talk to the owner." So I talked to the owner. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're interested, let's get you on." And so here I am, like this white girl from South Carolina, and I'm wearing like this kimono, and I was trying to sushi restaurant. I was trying to serve sushi to everybody. Everybody's looking at me like, giving me these weird looks. I'm like, "Yeah, I get
But
it."
it paid well. It did.
Well,
It
I mean,
did
hey, it
well.
helped pay the bills.
And you were working there when you landed your first role, your
I
big
was.
role.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. And I remember telling them, "Well, I quit."
So this South Carolina girl wearing a kimono serving
Oh,
sushi. So
I
your confidence level when you were younger versus that moment, it had grown drastically then.
yes, yes, because I felt like an imposter big time, but I'm like, "Hey, I'm rolling with it."
So Laura, when she moved out to LA, were there any like words of wisdom, advice that you gave her? As an example, when I first moved to Nashville, it's an area that has a lot of keeping up with the Joneses and things like that. And I remember my mom saying to me, don't get caught up with keeping up with the Joneses. Is
Right.
there anything like that that you gave to her when she was moving?
Yes, I told her, I said, just keep your humble roots and be who you are and keep that pretty smile. And I tried to encourage her. And in fact, I told her, I'd get on the internet and I would do all these searches and I would try to find her some classes.
Yeah,
And so found this class that the casting director for Days of Our Lives was teaching. And I just thought to myself, wow, what an awesome opportunity. I'm going to tell her to sign up for that and I'll pay for it.
yeah,
Well, thank goodness for that class because that's what landed her that
yeah,
role. But just to remember who she was at heart, my sweet
yeah.
little Amanda.
It's hard out there because it's very every conversation revolves around, "So what do you what show do you in
Yeah,
lately?" Or, what class did you take? And so it can
yeah.
get very just fake
And
and
a
surface.
lot of rejection. I mean,
Yeah,
thank goodness for her confidence level because she said, Mom, I tell you what, you can't go to LA and be sensitive because there's a lot of rejection
yeah,
involved in auditions.
Mhm.
yeah,
And, it can bother, it could really bother someone, I think,
yeah.
after a while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely can wear on you because even though I'm not supposed to take this personally because they're just looking for the right person.
yeah.
After a while, when you keep hearing no, 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 you're like, well, something's wrong. Apparently, I'm not a great actor. If I was a good actor, I would have landed something by now. So it can really get in your head, big time.
And one other thing I'd always tell Amanda as a little girl, pretty is as pretty does.
Yeah,
And in fact, my husband painted two little pictures for Charleston for her nursery because
yeah,
she said, "Mom, I want that saying in my daughter's room."
yeah,
So, and I tell Charleston a lot. I said, if you could be beautiful, but you have to have pretty ways and be sweet and good, to people. She is a very sweet girl, and I love that she loves the Lord.
So when you the rejection piece, because I know, like, as a parent, it's hard to see our kids let down and to be
Yeah.
told no, and especially in that environment where they put their whole entire life on hold to pursue this. I mean, she moved across the country, and to hear her maybe upset because of rejection, how did you handle that?
Well, I just told her to keep her chin up and don't get discouraged. Just stay in faith and pray about every audition. Just try to stay focused and positive.
Yeah.
And she always seemed to come through it.
Yeah, I did call several times. I think I quit. I think I'm coming home, you know.
Yeah. But
And
I'd say, well, that's fine. If you want to do that, you do that. But it might be the next job that you'll book.
I think I'd been out there maybe a year before I got my first job, or first big job. But in the scheme of things, that's really not a long time. But when you're in the midst of it, it feels like forever because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, like how many auditions can I do? How many, so um you can get patience is not one of my strong suits. So it was tough. I you would encourage me to keep going. I really do owe my first job to my mother because she's the one that signed me up or let me know about the class. And if it weren't for that class, that casting director cast me for my first big job, I honestly don't know of how it would have played out.
Most people think is that LA requires like a certain look and a certain like fitness level and things like that. I feel like in the past maybe decade, we've seen more and more actors have different looks about them. But one thing that Amanda said when she first moved to Nashville was that you just felt like 10 pounds had been lifted off of your shoulders because you no longer had to fit that mold. So I'm sure, like when you were moving out there, that was probably something that was weighing heavy on you. And so, Laura, as her mom, how did you address that? Did you just try to tell her, like you don't have to look like everybody else, or
Yeah,
how did
I
you deal with
did.
that?
I said, she was worried about her weight. And I just said, if you eat healthy and you exercise, you don't get obsessed about it. Just don't put so much pressure on yourself. But I mean, that's easy to say, but I
I
think
mean,
we did
it
real
worked
well.
though, having somebody tell you that because you do put a lot of pressure on yourself with the way you look and
Yeah.
perform and all those things. And it's like there's a certain standard of how girls want
Yes.
to look. And,
Yeah.
the camera adds 10 pounds. It's not a lie. It does. So there's a lot of pressure with that. And when you're acting with other females that are like just sticks, it's like there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure there. So mom was always able to kind of talk me off a ledge with that.
So when she was younger, and getting some of these jobs around the Southeast, would you go on set with her? Would you like be in the background? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, her daddy, he would drive her, even though she could drive herself. He didn't want her to have to travel because sometimes, it might be late at night after an audition. She might have to drive to Raleigh or Charlotte or Atlanta. And so he would take off from work and drive her because he just wanted to, make sure she was safe. And we weren't ever really allowed to go on the set, but we'd wait for her out in the car.
You did go to the benefit concert in New York. I was able to come into the VIP area with when I was on the
Yeah,
soap and take photos for the magazines and meet all the people on set and everything. So yeah, you definitely got to see people in New York for sure.
right. That
Yeah.
was the fun thing when she was on the soap operas. We'd get the little soap opera magazine, and I'd look at it every week to see if her picture was in it and what she said and what was going on. That was fun.
Well, my sister actually made a whole book when I was off the show. She saved every article and every picture from any one of those magazines and she put it in a album. So I have that actually. So there's a lot of memories
Yeah,
there, which was cool.
that was fun.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. I love that. So yeah, tell our audience you not only worked in LA, but then you went to New York and worked in New York. And was New York General Hospital?
That was All My Children.
All My Children.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was living in LA and working on General Hospital at the time, and the showrunner, basically, the president of daytime TV, he contacted my agent and said, "There's a part that I would like Amanda to audition for, but it's in New York." And so my manager was like, "Would you be interested in it?" And it was a pretty big part. So I thought, well, hey, I've always wanted to live in New York. If it worked out, that would actually be pretty fun. So long story short, I got the part and I had 2 weeks to get there. I drove cross country to South Carolina, where I dropped off my cat because I had a cat, and then flew up to New York. And then mom and dad packed a U-Haul and drove it up to me in New York City to my apartment and helped me unpack and get settled in New York City.
So surely with all of this time, you have maybe a couple really funny stories about Amanda, right?
Well, I tell you, yeah, there were a lot of them. But I was thinking, well, back in the Southeast, Amanda, you remember when you were 8 plate?
Oh, yes. Oh, that was hilarious.
Tell Natasha about that.
So remember that I told you the very first audition I got with my agency I booked? Well, it was for a Food Network show at the time. And I remember calling you, mom, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be on this reality show and I'm going to be like the bachelorette." So basically the premise of the show is there's two guys, I don't know who they are, but they watch a video of me and I talk about my favorite foods, and I talk about, what I prefer to eat and things like that. They go through this whole interview. And then these two guys that are like the bachelors, they go to the grocery store and they're paired with like famous chefs, and they pick out a meal of like what they think I would want to eat, and then they prepare it in this professional kitchen at a restaurant. And so I go to this restaurant and they're filming me, of course, and so I still don't know who the guys are. Still don't know who the guys are. And the waiter brings out the first dish and I taste it and I comment on it. And then the waiter brings out the second dish and I taste it and comment on it. And then I have to pick the winning dish. So based off of the winning dish, is who I get a date with. You're supposed to go on a date afterwards. We didn't go on a date. It's reality TV. Don't believe any reality TV you watch. It's not real. We changed clothes and then they filmed us on our date, which was about 10 minutes after I picked him. And we pretended like we had dinner together at the same restaurant that he cooked the food at, and they took pictures of us eating and like looking at each other and like like laughing and having a great time. It was all fake. He had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and it was all fake. So
It was cute, though. It was cute.
yeah, that was a fun
That
story.
is so funny.
Yeah.
So another funny story that I know is the time you about froze to death on the set of The Notebook.
Oh
Oh,
my God.
yeah. That's right. Oh
Torture.
my.
So,
I remember that.
nothing in the movies or TV is ever real, right? So if you've ever watched The Notebook, the very opening scene is they're at a carnival. And well, it just so happened it was supposed to be July, summertime, but it was not July, it was February. And we're all wearing like summer clothes, and I'm in like this little romper, uh and they've actually set up a real carnival. There's a Ferris wheel, there's the whole thing, there's bumper cars and everything. You see it in the movie. Well, somehow or another I got chosen to get on the Ferris wheel. And in the movies it's like you do a night scene lasts all night. So they start the minute the sun goes down, and I think at that point it was probably like 7:30 maybe they started, and then you go until the sun starts coming up. Well, the coldest of the night is during those hours. And I remember us being on this Ferris wheel and people started to yell from the top of the Ferris wheel, like, "Let me off!" Because we were all shivering, like we were so cold. And I remember finally they let us off after like 7 hours, and I could not feel my legs. I couldn't walk. I was like, "Someone's gonna help me to my car." And I swore I would never act again after that. I was like, "This is for the birds," because, Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling had on these, like, puffer coats and, like, these Ugg boots, and they were all, like, comfortable, and meanwhile, I'm up there with a romper on and, like, these sandals, and I'm, like, frozen half to death. So, and it was 2 nights of this. So the first night, I swore I wasn't gonna go back, and I remember mom telling me, "No, you committed to it, you gotta go, like, you gotta finish it out," and, so I showed up the second night, I froze to death that night, and, made it through, and every time I see that scene, I'm like, it brings back, like, just terrible memories, so, yeah, it was a terrible first experience on a movie set, I will say that. It was
Yeah.
But you stuck through it
I
because
did.
mom
Oh,
was like, "No, you made a commitment and you're going to do it." And had she not said that, who knows? Maybe you would just be forever a sushi girl,
I know.
but in
I
Charleston,
mean,
South Carolina.
who knows what I would be exactly, who knows where I'd be this day, so
That's
yeah,
right.
she was like, "No, you gotta go. You gotta made a commitment. It'll be fine." And I remember
Yeah.
just being like, "I can't go. I can't do it. I can't go back. It was torture."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Laura, were there ever any roles that you did not want Amanda to pursue, like horror films
Yeah.
or things
I,
like that that you guided her not to take?
well, I wasn't real happy with her playing Lizzie Borden.
Mom's more of the mindset of like Nick at Night, like very wholesome. I mean, like no violence, none of that. So, and at the time when I accepted that role, I had some reservations, but it ended up being okay. But yeah, that I
Yeah,
remember it was like
fine.
that,
It
but
was
I remember
fine.
it was like this is a little borderline. Like I
Yeah,
don't
this
want
is
the
kind of
whole
different.
taking over the
uh,
possession stuff. It's not, I wouldn't
Yeah,
do it today for sure. But at the time, I think I just was like, oh, a job. Yay. This is great.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's interesting. You say that you wouldn't do it today, but at the time, you probably just didn't have enough of maybe the foresight to actually
Mhm.
see.
yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't something that I want to do, and other roles will come. So
Mhm.
yeah,
you took it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there were a lot of things I did say no to, but there were particular things where I thought, "Oh, it's okay," and really now looking back, it's like horror films, I did say no to actually a lot of them.
Yeah, Amanda, we've talked before about how there's a lot that goes on in Hollywood that God protected you from.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Laura, I'm sure that's because she had a praying mom and dad, right? So talk us through that about how you're sending her to Hollywood, but you instilled in her those foundations of her faith, and then she had the support system of you guys praying for her back
Yeah.
home.
Well, I would always say, Amanda, do you have gas in your car? Because sometimes these auditions, she'd have to drive, all over.
Hmm.
Do you have your GPS? Do you know where you're going? I worried about every little thing. And, are you going to, there'll be other people there when you get there, and she always reassured me, oh, yes, mom, it's fine. My agent's sending me. So,
Yeah.
don't worry. But I just worried about her in general being out in a big city like that, by herself. But like I said, I just put my faith in God and just asked Him to please watch over her.
I think it helped to have representation that were also like believers. And
Yes,
so I think mom felt really good about that too because, Rick and
yes.
the people that I had that were
He's
representing
great.
me
He
were
was very,
very trustworthy. They were, we knew that they had my best interest at heart.
yes,
Unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, young adults go out there and they just don't know where to begin and they don't know where to start. And so they just take people's word for it. And so
yeah,
they land in very, and not to say that I couldn't have landed in a very sticky situation because it happens. You can have the best people
yes,
working for you and you just happen to be, at the wrong place at the wrong time. But fortunately, um, I always just always went with every place I ever showed up to or went to was by the recommendation of my representation, and so I knew it was legit. And
Yes.
I never just showed up to some weird thing that I didn't
Yes.
know, was not some just random ad.
Yeah, really great advice, because I know that there's probably a lot of people that are wide eyed and bushy tailed and heading for LA or Nashville to pursue a
Right.
singing career. And they need the right advice. And yeah, there's so many scams out there and people who don't have your best interest at heart. And to surround yourself with people that you know that are in your corner
Yeah,
and will only send you to things that they feel very comfortable and confident in.
yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah, so is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with me?
I enjoyed her doing her acting, and it was a great experience for us too.
Yeah,
Did a
whenever
great
I would have
job.
something coming out, I'd say, "Okay, it's coming out on this," and, and
Yeah.
so they would watch. I will
Fun.
say, coming from experience that, just know your worth and know that when things don't feel right, it's always okay to say no. Don't feel like you have
Yeah.
to say yes
Right.
because you just need a paycheck or an
That's
opportunity.
right.
And I think that a lot of times we have to learn that the hard way in saying like, man, I really didn't have to do that. But I think a lot of people are just willing to say yes because they're so desperate for an opportunity. And
Right.
but just know your worth and know that God's going to place you at the right place at the right time and in the
Yeah.
right opportunity. So you don't feel like you have to force yourself to do something that might go against your morals or beliefs or values, because there's a lot of that out there,
Yeah.
where people say, oh, it's okay. It's nothing. It's just TV, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to know yourself going into it, like, these are my do's and my don'ts. Like, you have to come up with a very solid line of what those are,
Yeah.
and then and stick by that and not feel like you have to compromise that,
That,
because it's just not worth it, at the end. So
no.
I had, like I said, I had a lot of from mom and dad, and their support in that, and knowing that I wasn't kind of trying to like go through this by myself and navigate these waters alone, and a lot of people do. So
Yes.
I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, very, very good words. And I appreciate both of you so much. Like I said, you raised such a good friend of mine, and I appreciate that. To close us out, why don't you guys do a little banter in some accents for me?
Oh, I know. I used to do New York accent, and I'd say, "Oh, I remember when I first moved there. I had an agent, and I still kind of had a little bit of a southern accent, and she would say, "Amanda, now you're gonna have to lose the accent, okay? You can't be walking around New York, and you can't be having a southern accent. You're gonna have to go to some kind of dialect class. You're gonna have to figure out how to lose the southern accent, because you're gonna have to be neutral." And she's
Yeah.
like talking to me in this heavy like New York accent, and I'm going, "Uh huh, uh huh." And it's like,
Yeah.
the more she talked, like the thicker it got. And so mom and I would talk about that, and we'd laugh. It's like, you can't be
Yeah.
walking around New York with a southern accent. You
Yeah.
gotta talk
Oh, New
neutral.
York.
You can't be doing it. And if you're gonna be living here in the city and you're gonna be going to auditions, you're gonna have to stop doing that. So I'm like, okay, and I'm like, just
That kind of stuff. We would go back and
yeah, we
forth
go
and
back and
laugh.
forth and stuff like that. It would be hilarious. So
I love it. So, did you have to try to hone in on a Midwest accent, or
mhm.
what was the accent for like the neutrality?
Yeah, Midwest. So
Yeah, Midwest.
I would have to really work on I used to say a lot like, "Hey, I'm fixing to go do this," and like, "Fixing? You're fixing to go do what? What are you fixing? You fixing a car?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not fixing a car." But so little things that I had to really watch what I would
Yeah.
say, and in turn, it actually made me lose my accent. It's unfortunate in ways. I mean, it does come out for sure living in Tennessee now, but for years, I'd had a pretty just standard neutral accent. Um, because I really had to work on losing it,
Yeah.
and you can't go on, especially soap opera, and have any kind of accent.
Well, everybody can go look up Amanda on IMBD. You can find her through Amanda Baker. And you can see all of the fun things that she's been a part of. And even being her friend for 7 years, there are things that I'm still surprised by. Like, I didn't know until today that you tried out for American Idol. She's this onion that we keep peeling back layers and like finding out more about Amanda and her past. Thank you both so much for your time. And
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
for having us.
Fun.
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. You guys have a
Yeah.
great day.